everybody. My name is Alyssa Prettyman for alyssayoga.com, and I have had a lot of requests lately for either low back pain or shoulder pain. So I'm going to start to create some quick YouTube live videos so I can just get it out there. This is one of many I would do on low back pain, because low back pain is complicated and very different person to person. Many people know I'm a yoga teacher because I experienced debilitating low back pain when I was 24, but my issues aren't necessarily going to be your issues. However, there are common culprits in low back pain that I find when people come into my classes and they say their back hurts. If I tackle psoas, piriformis, and QL stuff, that most people end up feeling some semblance of relief if they're in an active pain mode. So today what we're going to tackle is the piriformis. The piriformis is essentially a muscle that is underneath the glutes on your backside. And what's interesting about the piriformis is it attaches your sacrum, that triangular-like bone underneath your low back. It attaches on the front side of that bone, and then it runs all the way out to the greater trochanter of your femur, which is this big bony knob on the edge of your head. So the piriformis attaches your sacrum to your leg bone. And we can see why, if it were really tight or really loose, that it could lead to SI pain, hip pain, even knee pain. And one of the reasons is what it does. So the piriformis, can't see it. I'll go up a little bit. There we are. So piriformis, because it's back here and attaches to the leg bone, helps laterally rotate or externally rotate the hip. And when the hip is in flexion, it also helps abduct or take the hip away from center when it's flexed. So those things and those things are what the piriformis does. So if you can imagine that your piriformis is really tight, and then you go to walk or run or jump or bike, you can see how that might anger the entire series of joints in the lower leg as well, and even the feet. So piriformis, underneath which runs the sciatic nerve, so you can also feel kind of electric shocky sensations down the leg. I would wager that none of what we're going to do today is going to touch on that, but if you do feel any kind of electric shock down the leg, why don't you just move the ball a little bit north, south, east, or west of where you're working, and you should be fine. Not a huge deal if that happens, just don't continue to do it because it doesn't feel good. So the strategy that we're going to work with in this series is going to be one of massage, stabilize, and then stretch. Because if you have a little knot, say this is like a knot, and this is my muscle tissue, and you try to pull on it, well, it's not going to do much here, here, or here, but it's going to put an excessive amount of strain right here. So if we can roll first and release some of the sticky bits, then the stabilizing work and stretching work that we're going to do, hopefully, the theory is going to feel a little bit better and do us more good in the long term than if we just start pulling on something that might already be kind of cranky and have some knots or adhesions in it. So roll, stabilize, and then stretch is what's going to be our strategy in this kind of series of low back videos. So rolling the piriformis. Usually when I tell people to find the piriformis, when we get into a piriformis rollout, what I will say is find the top of the crack of your bum because you all know where that is. And you can feel, if you run your hands kind of down your low back kind of curves into the body. And then when it starts to come out again, when it heads towards your derriere, you're going to feel that your hand can kind of cup over this triangular-like bone back there. So because the piriformis attaches this bone out to the hip bone, we can kind of see that if I stay high towards the midline or the crack of the bum and just run a line diagonally or horizontally out towards the femur, it's a little bit diagonal down, that's going to get us into piriformis territory. What's challenging is you have a butt, so you have glutes that are on top of it, and the piriformis is under there. So when we work the piriformis, we usually need to try to stay and cruise that line as much as we can to impact the tissue on a deeper level, so that we're not just doing I can speak, surface level stuff on the glutes. So take a ball, any size ball works here. For this one, I like it a little bit smaller, but if you find that you're more sensitive, a slightly larger ball like an alpha ball can be a great place to start. You can do this on the wall. I'm going to show this on the wall first because there's less pressure that's coming in around the SI joint. So if you feel like your SI joint is not super stable, or you have some pain there, maybe work standing first, because then you can manage pressure and you don't have to have the full weight of your body coming down onto it. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to find the greater trochanter, that big bone there on the side, and I'm going to move just behind it. So then I'm on the fleshy part of my backside, this side cheek, so to speak. Then I'm going to lean into it and slowly drag towards the middle, towards kind of what I would say is the top of the crack of the bone. But I want to drag from my hip bone towards the sacrum. And I'm just going to pick the ball up and reset it. I'm going to do this like 5 to 10 times, leaning back with as much weight as I like. And what I'm going to use the ball to do is just kind of push the butt back onto the butt. And you can see right here that this line is relatively high. Like I'm not going all over the tush here. I'm trying to stay in the zone of the piriformis. Now, if you start to notice or go spelunking or exploring that you have other zones that are cranky, by all means, get rid of those adhesions too. Have a little dance party against the wall. There's a lot of stuff that's going to feel good in the glute region. But if you want to work piriformis specifically, if you think that is one of your culprits of low back pain, then you're just going to want to stay on this line for, like I said, anywhere from 5 to 10, but I might even do like 15 slow, deep pulls in towards the middle. And just see how that feels. Okay. Did about 15 there. Now we're going to go to the other side. So I'm going to find that big bone. Sometimes if you lean onto one hip and stick it out, you can say, oh yeah, there's that big hip bone. Find it, go right behind it, lean against the wall, and slowly pull towards the middle. Now when I go back to the side, I'm going really light, and then I'm going to deep, slow pull towards the middle. And this can be helpful if you have trouble with stretches like half pigeon. It can be helpful if a half pigeon, which is a great stretch for low back pain, or figure 4, if you know it by that version or that name. And also if you have trouble kind of aligning your knee in lunges, if the knee tends to cave in a little bit too much, pushing these muscles back might help the knee align over the second toe, which is what we look for in lunging. The farther away I step my feet, the more pressure I can kind of get into the wall here. If I'm right up against it, I can't get too much pressure. I step away a little bit, lean into the wall, and then I can drive from the side towards the middle. If you feel that anything on this pathway is super sensitive, you can stay and just take a deep breath. Okay, feeling good. So that's a piriformis release on the wall. Now, the challenge is you're standing, your leg muscles are working, and you still may be just primarily impacting your gluteus maximus and gluteus glute med, which are some of the larger, more superficial backside muscles. So to do this on the ground, I'm going to switch balls because that other ball is getting a little bit warm and I want it to be more firm. So one thing we can do here is lie down and come into either knees bent, feet flat, or Baddha Konasana. So here or here, okay? I'm gonna lift my hips. I'm gonna put the ball, again, high, but just to the side of the top of the crack of the bone, okay? I don't wanna feel that I am on my sacrum. I don't wanna feel that I'm on that bone. I wanna feel like I'm off to the side of it in that fleshy territory. And then I'm gonna drop my left knee out to the left, because I'm on the left side. If you're on the right side, just drop the right knee out. See if this feels okay for your hips and groin, because this might help your muscles relax a little bit more. If not, you can do this with knees bent, feet flat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the opposite leg as kind of my driving leg to slowly drag from the middle towards the edge and back. So I'm going to continue to just draw that horizontal line high on the back of the cheek, okay? And that's kind of your vector. Now, before we focus on pushing towards the middle, I'm okay if you go side to side here with equal pressure. What I want you to feel is that you can really dig the ball in and look for any trigger points or cranky spots. Spicy areas, sparkly areas, nice fluid flow. It's a lot of what massage does, right? Is it makes things less sticky so that they slide and glide easier. And so we hydrate, we nourish tissue so they can move well. Okay? Maybe, if it feels okay, you bring the ball out to the side cheek where the cheek meets the bone and you just rock a little bit there. Not on the bone, that's not going to feel good, you're still on the flesh, but now I'm kind of keeping the ball in one place and I'm just seesawing over it. It's like the fulcrum of the seesaw, right? That little middle bit. And I could do that at a few different spots. I could move it a little bit lower if I just wanted to start to impact some glute med, maybe even lower. I get towards the sits bone a little bit, deep six, rotator muscles of the hip. Yes, we're mostly focused on the piriformis, but no muscle operates in isolation, right? They all work to move the body as little teams, depending on the direction of motion. All right, let's do the other side. We'll finish up our rolling, and then we'll see what else we can do for the piriformis. So I've lifted my hips, I find the middle, I go off to the side a little bit, sit down, and then I try to relax that other knee out. So I'm gonna keep this foot on the ground because it's gonna help me drive, and I've kind of slacked my right knee out to the right. And then I'm just gonna drag side to side. And as you do this, the ball might start to travel, might start to go south. Sometimes you gotta pick up, reset, just to keep it focused on that high line, high on the top of the cheek. It's like if your jeans fell a little bit too low and you started to have a little bit of that plumber's butt, just a little bit of that plumber's butt. If I were to trace a line across the top of the cheeks there, that's kind of where we are. I'll do a few more of these, side to side. You can go as fast or as slow as you like. Sometimes we move a little bit to warm up, and then we can do some slow, deep, steady work. Slow stuff can reveal more details. It can also be a little bit more intense, right? We like to move because we're not in one space for too long if it's intense. And so you can slow down a little bit now. And then if it felt interesting before, bring the ball a little bit more out to the side and just rock on it. You might feel like you're in a little canyon or like a little groove between the bone and the side of the cheek. You might want to come in a little bit closer to the muscle. And we're just rocking. And every 5 or 6 rocks, maybe you want to try. What happens if I move the ball a little bit higher here? What if I move it a little bit lower? And just see what's there too. So you just kind of get the zone. around the piriformis attachment point. We'll take a couple more breaths here, just seesaw on the side cheek a little bit. Okay. So take that ball out, you can place it off to the side. So that is your booty massage, your piriformis massage on the wall and on the ground. Now what we're gonna do is a little bit of bridge lifting. We're gonna do a breathing exercise with that. And then we're gonna do some funky stuff to just try to awaken the piriformis. So bridge lifts, maybe not directly piriformis, a little bit more glutes. But again, we're looking at the system, the zone, the neighborhood in which the muscle lives, and we're gonna try to make it happy and functional. So knees bent, feet flat, arms by your side. And this is something I would do and most physical therapists recommend when having low back pain anyway. If you're in active pain, I just wouldn't lift as high here. I'd see what the body has available. So you're gonna inhale, hips peel up. See if the arms can go up too. And exhale, roll down, hips down, arms down. Inhale, hips up, arms up. We're not staying there too long. We're not forcing it. We're not pushing or grinding. Exhale, come on down. Try to move with the rhythm of the breathing. Inhale, hips up, arms up. Exhale, hips down, arms down. And breathing in a way that tells the brain we're okay. Starts to wake up the glutes a little bit. Starts to wake up the shoulders a little bit. Now we're going to do an exercise called reclining Uddiyana Bandha. It's a breathing exercise, it's a diaphragm exercise, but it works really nicely with this whole low back pain system that we're exploring. Gives a little tug in the zone of the psoas and the QL, which we'll do videos on later. So you're going to see that we're going to lift back like we were before. Exhale all the air out, and then we're going to suck the navel, not just in, but up, almost like I'm trying to pull my belly button up under the rib cage and get into a pair of jeans that's too tight. Here's what it looks like in the reclining version. And so part of that Uddiyana Bandha exercise is 1, you exhale completely. 2, you pull the navel in and up under the rib cage like you're sucking in. And 3, you hold, you retain the exhale. And you may start to get a little bit anxious, and if that happens, just soften the belly and breathe normally. But we are trying to kind of tone the diaphragm, the breathing apparatus, while we do some of this work. So let's try it together. I'm going to talk you through it 2 times, and then I'll do it with you once. So let's inhale, hips up, arms up. Exhale all the air out, all of it, all of it, all of it. Pull the navel in and up, and then put your hips down. Feel that vacuum-like tugging through the torso, neck, pelvic floor. Stay for 3, you're almost there for 2. Soften your belly, breathe in, and breathe out. Now, it is normal if you have to cough a little bit here. Just don't suck in so hard next time and work with that edge. So let's try it again. Inhale, hips up, arms up. Exhale all the air out. All of it, all of it, all of it. Suck the navel in and up. Put your hips down. Retain for 3. Retain for 2. Retain for 1. Arms come down. Okay, this time I'm just going to show you, but I'll do it with you and I'll hold with you. Hips up, arms up. Now let's clear it. Okay, arms come down. Let's roll into one side now. And we're going to do something that looks like old school Jane Fonda. Okay? So you don't need any tools to do this. I like adding resistance here. So I'm going to take a resistance band around my thighs, and I'm going to put a cordless ball between them. So because we know that the piriformis laterally rotates or externally rotates the hip and helps abduct when the hips are in flexion, we're going to kind of test out the piriformis here. And all I've done is again, I've added resistance in both directions, and I'm going to hold on to my resistance band a little bit. So you keep the inner edges of the feet together, and then you're going to try to lift that top knee away from the bottom knee. Do you feel that stuff on the side cheek or the back of your backside start to fire a little bit? And then come back. And now I have the cordless ball here because I want to squeeze in and I want to strengthen my adductors as well. So I'm working both sides here. But if you just want to work the piriformis, you don't need anything. You just lift and squeeze. And lift and squeeze. And again, if I had nothing, I would just be doing, right, the old school Jane Fonda clamshell. But you want to do it enough times so that you feel that the musculature back there is giving you a little bit of a run for your money. If you're working with resistance in both directions, I mean, you can put a pillow between your thighs if you don't have this kind of ball. Squeezing out, squeezing in, squeezing out, squeezing in. And part of kind of like the mystery of pain and muscles is making sure that there's harmony on both sides of the joint, in both directions that the muscles go. When one is too strong and the other is too weak or too long, that creates an imbalance. And when we're really imbalanced or really asymmetrical, that's when things start to get out of whack. So all I'm doing here is adding a little bit of inner thigh strength as well. Okay, have we had enough of that? Do we feel a little bit of activity in the glutes and the piriformis? Lovely. Let's do the other side. And I'll demo the other side with nothing, just so you can see. I promise you will still feel something on your other side. Like we're going to have a casual chat. You bend the knees, you hook them in a little bit. Keep the feet together, open and close. Yes, it feels old school and ridiculous. But you start to feel that that muscle is coming online, which is what we want. Just pulling, just stretching, just yanking on muscle without understanding if it's functional, if it's stable, isn't always the best idea. Stretching is wonderful if the whole system is happy, but if we just pull on it and pull on it and pull on it, and it's not stable or it's got a bunch of knots in it, that might not be doing us the service that we're looking for. And again, even with no tools, yeah, I feel it. These muscles back here are coming online, focusing on the piriformis. That feels groovy. We're going to feel it even more in a second. See if you can do 3 or 4 more. Just even yourself out. Lovely. Oh, there it is. And then what we're going to do is one that also involves the glutes. It's kind of hard to ignore here. But this is going to get spicy right quickly. Now the hips are in flexion, right? My legs aren't straight. That knee is coming in, 90-degree bend here. And we know that the piriformis helps with abduction. Takes it out, externally rotates a little bit. So what we're going to do from hands and knees is firm in the belly. And I don't mean grip. I want you to think of hugging the spine. And nobody wants to be hugged so tight that they feel like their head's going to pop off. You want to feel hugged in a way that is supportive, that is loving, that is present, but that is also stable, right? So I'm going to hug onto the spinal column, pull the navel in, Pull the side waist in a little bit. And then I'm gonna lift one knee out to the side like a dog peeing on a fire hydrant. And then I'm gonna start to draw little circles with that knee. And I've started going backwards, doesn't matter which direction you start going in, because we're gonna do both. And notice I'm not leaning way over to the side. I'm trying to keep the four corners of my torso relatively stable, so I can kind of isolate and work with that side cheek region. You feel it? All right, pause, go in the other direction. I would recommend trying this for about 30 seconds in each direction. And you may only get 10 before you're like, oh, hell no. But see what you can do here. Stay for 3. Stay for 2. Stay for 1. Come on back down. Whew, nice and spicy. I want you to know that there are modifications for this if you have wrist pain and you don't want to be on the wrist. So I always recommend spend $10-15, get yourself some cheap yoga blocks, and instead of being on hands and knees, you can be on forearms and knees, and your spine, see how my spine is still relatively parallel to the floor as it would be here. Maybe here it's a little bit higher. But I have this option. You can also pad the knees, okay? Then what we're gonna do, firm, hug the belly in, hug onto the spinal column, and then bring that other leg out, and then start to make those circles. Ooh, I think this is almost harder. Stable in the shoulders, stable in the hips. Let the side cheek do the work. Let the piriformis start to wake up even more. You're here for 3, here for 2. Pause, go in the other direction. Yeah, there it is. Steady in the breath. Stay with it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. It might feel really nice to just press back for a child's pose. That feels all right for your knees. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Okay. We've massaged. We've stabilized. Now we're going to stretch. So the first stretch I want us to try is a simple seated twist. So come into a seated position. Now if this is a lot on your low back, perhaps roll up a little towel or a blanket and put it underneath your sits bones here so that it's a little bit easier for you to tip the pelvis forward and sit up straight. Take one leg bent. See if you can pull it in and sit up straight. For some of us, this is where we're going to start. If you can lift that foot and cross it over the straightened leg, even better. So the knee that's bent, put that hand behind you, that'll help you sit up tall. The opposite arm is going to wrap around the knee and just help you twist. Inhale, press down into your sits bones, get a little bit taller. And exhale, see if you can turn your navel towards that inner thigh. And just ride the breath here. Stay with it, a few more breaths. The thing is, if something's tight, it didn't get there overnight. I don't want to yank on it forever, but I want to stay in some of these stretches just under a minute. And depending on the rate of your breath, that can be anywhere from 5 to 15 smooth, steady breaths. Okay, so let's release and do the other side. That leg straightens, other knee bends. We make sure that we can sit up tall. We pull the foot in as much as we can. You stay here or see if it's possible to cross the foot outside the lengthened leg. All right, so the knee that's bent, Take that hand behind you a little bit. Push into the floor, let it assist in the lengthening of your spine, let it help you sit tall. Take that other hand, wrap it around the knee. I know some yoga people have the elbow hook too. I'm not super worried about that today. If you do it, great. If not, great. I want you to sit tall on your inhale and twist a little bit as you exhale. And just ride your breath into the shape. Inhale helps you make space on the inside. And exhale helps you move into the space. Inhale, make space. Exhale moves into the space. Let's take another big breath in. And a big breath out. Okay. Coming back through center, you can try a seated version of Sukhasana or easy seat if this feels okay for you. So what we're going to try to do is sit kind of crisscross applesauce, but move the feet out a little bit. So that if I scooch my hips back, my feet are a little bit more under the knees than they are if I kind of, see how I like pull them back under me and they head towards the butt. Shifting my shins forward a little bit and pushing out through the bottoms of the feet. And that might be plenty. You might say like, whoa, Nellie, I need to lean back here. If you have a little bit more room to lean the chest forward, that's groovy too. Let's see if we can take 5 breaths. And imagine that you're trying to send the breath as low and as wide in the body as possible. So soften the belly. I know if you're folded forward, there's a little bit of pressure here, but see if you can just breathe the belly as big as possible, and perhaps even envision that you're breathing all the way down into your pelvic floor. So inhale, you feel a little bit of downward pressure. And on the exhale, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor are actually supposed to lift a little bit. And it makes sense, right? As you inhale, the diaphragm descends, it pushes onto the organs, which push down into the pelvic floor. And as you exhale, there's that release of pressure as the air goes out. So it's almost like beautiful jellyfish-like undulation, a bellows-like experience as we breathe. But it also comes with this understanding that the way that we breathe influences the musculature in and around the torso. So if we're not breathing well, the muscles also don't get that little kind of gentle massage that they're designed to. Let's take another big breath in and a big breath out. All right, come on up. Switch the foot that's in front. You probably started on your favorite side, and this might be a little bit crankier. We tend to start on the sides that we prefer, okay? Let's try to get the feet out a little bit more under the knees, the shins maybe a little bit more forward so that they're almost parallel with the top of the mat. Decide if you need to lean back. Decide if you need to lean forward. And with this perhaps newfound understanding of the importance of the breath when it comes to working in and around the muscles of the torso, see if you can direct the breath low and wide. In yoga, there's this concept of svadhyaya, of self-study. And I always think of it when I do held hip stretches, because I used to go nuts in hip stretches. Like I hated them. I was super anxious. I was really fidgety. And I feel that urge kind of deep down, right? I know it's still there. And it took me a long time to realize that the stretch wasn't making me anxious, that it was just providing an environment where I could notice the anxiety that was already there. Nothing is making me anxious. It's already down there, and I have to figure out how to deal with it, what I'm going to do with it. And it was that sort of reversal of kind of blaming and victimization, and instead like, oh, this is here. What can I do with this? How can I make space for this? That totally changed the way that I felt about yoga. Probably one of the reasons I'm a teacher today. Let's take a big breath in and a big breath out. I know that was, these are a little bit longer than we're used to. Okay. So now what we're going to do is a figure four. Now, if you're a yoga person, you do half pigeon, groovy, get your half pigeon on. This, I just kind of want us to focus on what's accessible for everybody. So figure four or half pigeon if you're into it. I'm going to show you figure four a few different ways. You can choose the way that works for you, but I'd like you to try to get into it and hold it for 10 to 15 slow, steady breaths. Figure four, option one, seated, cross, one ankle to opposite knee. The more you lean back, the greater this angle, the less intense it is. The more you sit up or bring that bottom foot in, the more intense it is. But this is a little bit of work on your wrists, which I don't always love. So, reclining version can happen just like this. You're really tight in the hips, this is probably going to be plenty for you. If you want, if you don't feel anything, lift that bottom foot and interlace the hands. Now this is a little bit of work for your hands, and it's a little bit of work for your arms if you're really pulling in. So if you want the third version, which is probably my favorite, you can come to the wall. Yes, I can still see you. And you can put that other foot on the wall. And now it's doing all the work for you, okay? So whichever one you're in, I've probably been talking for about 5 to 7 breaths. Let's take about 5 to 7 more breaths together. And this is another one, every time my low back went out, talking to physical therapists, have you heard of this figure four stretch they do in yoga? Yes, I have. Okay, let's release that side, however you were doing it, right? And then take opposite ankle to opposite knee. Remember, you can do this on the floor. You can lie on the ground and interlace behind the thigh. You can sit up. All of the variations are good. It's just, bodies are different. No two people are going to feel the stretch exactly the same way in exactly the same spot. And so much of this practice is turning on what we call interoception, or can I accurately feel what's happening on the inside of my body? Is this a good juicy stretch? Does it feel delicious? Is this bone on bone? Am I pushing too hard? I'm starting to interpret the information that's coming to you in the form of sensation. The body is phenomenally sophisticated. It does millions of things every day that you're not even aware of. The only way it can really speak to you is in the form of sensation. So we work on getting good at understanding the information the body's sending. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm tired, I'm sore. How can I treat my body well so it'll last for a long time? As little pain as possible. Let's take another big breath in. And another big breath out. Release. Hug both knees into chest. You can do this from a seated position too. Just curl in. And then we will meet in a seat. Okay, so that is your little Piriformis low back massage stabilize, and stretch, MSS. So that's one. We're going to do a few more of these, and on May 23rd, 2020, I'm going to do a big workshop at Breathe Together Yoga Online, which is going to talk about the three amigos of low back pain, the Piriformis, the QL, the psoas, and we're going to have a little bit of bonus content in that one too. So I hope you join me. Thanks for coming, alyssayoga.com. If you like what we did here today and you have the ability to donate on Venmo, I am just at Alyssa Prettyman, or PayPal, which is alissajh7@gmail.com. It would be greatly appreciated. And if not, then I just hope you enjoyed it. Be well. And now I'm going to awkwardly crawl towards the computer and end the stream so you can see the coronavirus roots of social distancing and self-quarantine. Have a good day.